We're very pleased to have with us today Craig Andresen. He runs a great site. Again, it's called the National Patriot. And he's got a great article talking exactly about the Obamacare tax and where did it come from. And looking forward to bringing him on here. I want you to hear from him because he's got a lot of knowledge about this. And let's get him on here now. Craig, it's great to have you on the program.
Don, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. I loved your article today, and I think it really broke down. We just got done playing the clips of Barack Obama as a candidate and now as the president, where always no taxes on anybody under $250,000, which, first of all, it was a moving target for quite a while, but then he finally settled on $250,000. Well, all of the American people just got a big tax increase. And I wanted to reference into your article. Tell me a little bit about what you put on there today, and I want everybody to go check it out at the National Patriot. But tell me a little bit about your article today.
Well, for all the time from the beginning of the Obamacare process, excuse me, through, or right up until the time where the Solicitor General presented his argument, which was basically Obama's argument to the Supreme Court about 3 months ago, this was not a tax. Not a tax, definitely not a tax, absolutely not a tax, it's not a tax. Nobody's going to get their taxes raised because of this, not one dime. And then all of a sudden it became a tax. And under the Commerce Clause, Obamacare was going to be thrown out in its entirety. If you read the opinions, it was going to go out in its entirety under the Commerce Clause. However, if Obamacare is a tax, according to Chief Justice John Roberts, who became the swing vote, much to everybody's surprise, all of a sudden Obamacare is constitutional as a tax. Okay? If it's a tax, it has to have originated in the House of Representatives. Only the House. If you look at Article 1, Section 7 of the Constitution, it says, and I quote, "All bills for raising revenue shall originate in the House of Representatives, but the Senate may propose or concur with amendments as on other bills." Mm-hmm. Well, Obamacare, technically the Affordable Care Act, was actually written in the Senate, not in the House. The Senate wrote it behind closed doors. The Senate then handed it to the House, where Nancy Pelosi told us all, now you have to pass it to find out what's in it.
Well, and we've certainly found out what's in it.
Yeah, and we continue to find out what's in it. Last week we found out it's a tax bill. The tax bills cannot be written by the Senate. They must, constitutionally, be written in the House of Representatives. And this did not happen with Obamacare. So now, all of a sudden, you've got the fact that it's a tax. Obama is going to have to own the fact that it's a tax. And not only a tax, Don, let's remind everybody, there are 21 separate taxes in Obamacare. 21 brand new taxes in Obamacare. 12 of those apply directly to the middle class, who the emperor told us he was not going to raise taxes on.
Yep.
But this raises 21 brand new taxes. So he has to own the fact now that he is presiding over the largest tax increase in all of American history. But here's the problem. Here's the problem. If he's going to insist, and he already has, I mean, the liberals, Obama, the liberal pundits are all on the attack now. No, this is not a tax. It's not a tax. If he's going to insist it's not a tax, then it's unconstitutional under the Commerce Clause. If he's going to turn around and agree it is a tax and the largest tax increase in American history, it's unconstitutional under Article 1, Section 7, which says all taxes have to be originating in the House. So what's it going to be? And the other question, of course, is, will anybody in Congress do anything about this?
Yeah, I think that's the real question here, is what are we going to do about this? Because we talk about, Mitt Romney's talking about, when if he gets elected, that he's going to immediately repeal this, or he's going to give waivers to the states, which I think that's probably the best way to go, to give the waivers power to the states. The problem here is, like you were talking about, like we talked about just before I brought you on here, it was always argued that this is not a tax. It's because he had made the promises that he was not going to raise taxes on people under $250,000. Yet, when they went to the Supreme Court, and this is where I first started realizing there's going to be a problem here, because when they first argued this in the Supreme Court, their whole argument was they didn't want to talk about the Commerce Clause at all then, which was what it was all leading up to this point. All they wanted to talk to, no, this is a tax. Even at the same time, you had the administration saying, oh, no, it's not a tax. So I really think they've really got themselves twisted up into a big knot over this whole thing.
Well, they do. And, it was not a tax. The obvious reason was Obama didn't want to have to preside over the largest tax increase in American history. We're looking at a time where, 2009, when he started this mess, we're looking at a time where unemployment is directly aimed at 10.1, 10.2%. The economy was tanking. The housing situation was absolutely abysmal. He was also in the process at that point of raising the debt to historic and epic proportions, and that continues to this day. Why in the world would he want to then be the president that was presiding over the largest tax increase in American history and 21 brand new taxes? Now, it's been said by various conservatives in Congress in the last couple of days that, had this been presented as a tax bill from the onset, it would have never gotten a single vote in either the House or in the Senate, because they were staring the 2010 midterm election right in the face when this thing was being presented. So if they would have agreed that it was a tax, woe be to them, because they would have been gone. Any of them that would have voted for it would have been gone automatically at that point, considering the economy. The less obvious, but maybe even the more important reason that we were being told it was not a tax was the very reason we're talking about in this article today, because as a tax, it would have had to have been written in the House of Representatives, and this was not. It was written in the Senate. And that may well be another very big reason why they did not want this identified as a tax bill. So when the ruling came down at about 10:15 Eastern Time on Thursday that, yes, by golly, this is going to be upheld as a constitutional bill, I'm sure the high fives were just flying around the Oval Office at that point. But less than 1 minute later, the reason it's being upheld is because it's a tax. Had to absolutely crush them, because now they've got to deal with that aspect of it.
Exactly, and I think that's really, like I said, where they've twisted themselves into a pretzel on this thing. And one of my favorite clips I saw this morning, I actually had Fox on for a little bit before the program came on, and they played the clip of Nancy Pelosi. And she was being asked directly, as Jay Carney was too, and he was like, well, you can call it whatever you want. They're really in a bad spot here, but Nancy Pelosi was hilarious with the, that's Washington speak as far as what's a tax and what's not a tax. That's Washington speak, and that's not for the people. They wouldn't understand that. And you got to love Nancy Pelosi coming out basically saying that she knows a whole lot more about things than the average American citizen does, and that, her intelligence level is quite a bit higher than the average American. That was my favorite clip of the day.
Nancy Pelosi is a festering boil on the intelligence of people everywhere.
Yes, she is. She's a real piece of work.
If we're going to call it whatever we want to call it, as Jay Carney said, call it whatever you want. How about we just call it repealed?
Exactly. Call it repeal, and let's get it done with. And that's why, again, I'll go back to that. I think Mitt Romney, and I think giving waivers to the state, the problem there, of course, is you're going to have some states that are going to go, oh, no, we're going forward with this, and then so now you've got everybody paying for these states that are in the program. But really, it's really important right now for the Republicans to come out with alternatives and say, okay, this is where we need to go with this once we pull this way. Because I think a lot of Americans, they agree that there needs to be some changes. There needs to be portability with health care. I really think, my personal opinion is that we really need to get it away from employers offering health care where it's an employer thing, because we've moved away from a society where you go and you work for a company for 40 years and then you retire, and people are a lot more portable with their jobs, and they may not stay at the same place for longer than 5-10 years now. I don't know what the national average is right now, but I think the big thing right now is for the Republicans to come out with alternatives, and here's what we need to do to fix the program.
Well, and I think when you start doing that, you've got to include tort reform in that. Mm-hmm. You've got to put some caps. I mean, somebody goes in and gets has surgery and something goes wrong, and God forbid that something goes wrong in surgery. And I don't care what kind of surgery it is, whether it's an elective surgery or something that's directly related to somebody's well-being, or how serious a surgery it is, or even if it's an outpatient surgery. You don't want something going wrong, but to be able to sue for unlimited funds, something goes wrong, something's going to have to be done there too, because that also raises the amount that doctors have to pay in their malpractice insurance, and the costs that the doctors are incurring on that end then have a direct reflection in what they charge for patient services. So it's going to have to be a very well orchestrated, very all-encompassing, type of thing. And, like you say, the portability, it's got to be there. There are some good things that are embedded in this 2,400-page Obamacare bill, but all the good stuff was front-loaded in the bill. All the bad stuff, the taxes, how it's going to be implemented, the $105 billion of implementation that's already been poured into it that Michelle Bachmann found. All of that stuff was backloaded. So the idea here was to get people hooked on the entitlement early, get all the good stuff going early, so people are, oh yeah, this is great, I want this. And then by the time the backloaded bad stuff comes about, people don't have any choice but to accept it. And that was also part of what we had to pass to find out what was in it.
One of the scariest things, and I talk about this a lot in the program, is this is where we really get into the problem, and it's the problem of the government inserting themselves into our healthcare system. The scariest thing about this whole deal is, as a conservative, I want less government control. I want personal responsibility. I believe in the individual. And when you get the government involved in healthcare, and all you got to do is look at Mayor Bloomberg right now and all his crazy stuff he's got with the sodas and all that stuff. But when you insert the government into our health decisions, they're going to make up studies, and they're going to say, well, we've got this study that shows eating this costs us $10 bazillion a year, and so that's why we've got to stop this. That's the real problem here, and I think that's what a lot of people aren't really focusing on, is when you get the government involved in our healthcare choices, they really can take complete control of every aspect of our behavior and of our lives.
Well, it's bad enough that, for all of our lives we've had the IRS acting as our personal proctologists. Now they're going to add thousands more FBI agents, or not FBI, but IRS agents into the mix. And then you've got the entirety of Congress poking around in your, shall we say, business. And none of that is good. I mean, if somebody can name one thing that the Congress has taken control of and run as an entity or as a business that has any, resemblance to success, I'd like to know what it is. The post office? Certainly not. They're closing those things down right and left. Amtrak? Oh, no. No, not Amtrak. You look at it, right down the line, from Alpha to Omega, and the government should not be running anything. And, the last thing they should possibly be running is our healthcare system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely right. That's the bottom line. This is the government, I remember Ronald Reagan, and one of my favorite things from Ronald Reagan was when he joked about, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Here you've got, you mentioned the post office. Look at everything that's going on, the money that's being lost at the post office, and that's due to technology. Things have changed in our society. Yet, Republicans come out and they say, okay, listen, we need to do some cutbacks. We just can't afford to lose billions and billions of dollars a year on this, so we need to make some changes. It's not even just Republicans doing this, but as soon as they do that, as soon as you start talking about, hey, let's run this actually like a business where you can't afford to just lose money, then you get all of this nastiness and you get all of the demonization and you get everything that the left typically does on these issues. And I think that's one of the real dangers in our society right now.
Well, if you really want to know how efficient the government is at running anything, just look at the GSA right now. Mm-hmm. This is the government agency that's in charge of watching out for how government agencies spend their money. And GSA is not only in hot water, they are submerged in a boiling vat of waste and absolute debauchery. And is this the same government we want running our health care and telling us how to be healthy and making determinations as to what kind of medications we get and what kind of care we get, who gets operated on, who doesn't get operated on, and by whom? I mean, right now, you've got the ability, if you need to have an operation, to seek second and third and fourth opinions and make your determination as to what doctor you have operate on you. Eventually, under a government-run system of healthcare, all of those options, all of those things that you hold so dear now, relating to your health and your well-being and quite possibly your life, are going to be taken away and run by the government. Is that what we want? Boy, I sure don't think so.
I don't either. And that's, when you bring that up, that's a great point, because you look at, and I think there's a lot of discussion today about optics and when you label something a certain way, it just has a bad optics. And I think when the Republicans and Sarah Palin and many others came out and they talked about death panels, which actually was accurate, but maybe the optics on that weren't so good. The bottom line is the IPAB, the Payment Advisory Board. That's just a nice name for death panels. It's the same thing, but it sounds so much friendlier.
Well, and that's why I think Sarah Palin came out and called it a death panel, because, if you call it what it's actually labeled in the cute little acronym, that they have for it, and by golly, everybody wants an iPad, don't they?
Sure.
You think about a little handheld device from Apple, and everybody wants one of those. But sometimes you got to call it what it really is to shake people into being awake. And I think that's what Sarah Palin did. And if you need any further convincing that that's what it leads to, look at what's going on in Europe right now. In the last several years, 130,000 elderly people have been euthanized in Europe because they simply cannot afford to continue their care, and they feel the entity that oversees all that just feels like, well, this person has outlived their usefulness, their quality of life is not going to be such that it's financially sustainable to sustain their life. And these people are then euthanized. And, liberals in Congress, liberal pundits, they poo-poo that. They call it a scare tactic. Well, maybe it is a scare tactic, but it's a factual tactic. And this is what socialized healthcare and socialized medicine eventually leads to, especially in a nation or a region where you've got skyrocketing debt. And that's what they're facing in Europe right now, so they simply can't afford it. We're heading directly towards that. As a matter of fact, Paul Ryan a few days ago had the CBO extrapolate where our national debt was heading. And just using the Obamacare, the Medicare, the Medicaid, and the Social Security. And he said, at the current rate of growth of these items that are budgeted, he said, where are we going to wind up? Well, the CBO's computer system literally crashed in the year 2037 because at that point, just using our current rate of growth, At that point, those entitlements and those social programs were going to amount to 800, get this, 800% of the GDP.
It is. That's incredible.
This nation is completely wiped out of money.
Yep.
And the CBO computers could no longer extrapolate it past that point. That is frightening.
It's very frightening, and I think one of the things on that point, I don't know how many of my listeners know this, but one of the big pushes right now that's coming out of Barack Obama and his administration is, of course, we've already got far more, millions and millions of people on food stamps that weren't on when he became president, and they've actually just launched a $3 million campaign. We don't have $3 million, but we just launched a $3 million national campaign to increase and encourage people to sign up for food stamps.
Well, that advertising campaign, by the way, is directly aimed at elderly people. Mm-hmm. And here again, the liberal pundits and the liberals in Congress will say, well, advertising for food stamps has been done for a long time. As a matter of fact, George W. Bush did it. But here's what they don't want you to know. That advertising budget, since the day Obama took office, right up till today, just barely 3.5 years, has increased by 100%. Mm-hmm. And so much more emphasis is being put on this to get people on food stamps. Again, get people hooked on the entitlement, get them hooked on it now, and there's no way you can take it away from them. You literally addict people to these things, and that's what socialism is all about. You get people addicted to government entitlements, and you can't take them away. The problem is, eventually, every socialist government on earth runs out of other people's money, and then where are you? Those people that were addicted to those entitlements are now pretty angry.
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, Occupy Wall Street. I mean, say no more. But I think one of the things too is you get demonized if you talk about the Saul Alinsky tactics and all that with Barack Obama, and you can't use it's the S word, socialism. But if anybody out there that's read Saul Alinsky and his books, that's what he talks about. Exactly what you're talking about, Craig, is you get all these people signed up, and the goal of that is to overload the system. Overload it so that they can't process it administratively, but also overload it so they can't pay for it. And that's the goal of those tactics. And I think people really need to wake up to that and realize that's exactly what's going on. Why else spend $3 million to promote elderly people to get on the food stamps?
Well, it's crazy. And if you look at Obama's campaign, before he was elected in 2008, the run-up to that, the year and a half that he was actually on the campaign trail, as opposed to the 3.5 years he's been on it since, the only campaign promise that he's been able to keep so far is that he wanted to fundamentally transform America. And if you go back and you listen to it, at one point he says, I'm going to fundamentally transform America. And almost in the very next breath, he called America the greatest nation on earth. Well, if America is the greatest nation on earth, which I believe it is, mm-hmm. Why does it need to be fundamentally transformed? And what we're seeing now is that fundamental transformation. We're going from a constitutional republic of the people, by the people, and for the people to imperial rule. And this is where we find Obama today. This is why I refer to him as the emperor. He is ruling imperially. He's making unilateral decisions, what laws he's going to uphold, what laws he's not going to uphold. It's getting to the point where, the transparency that he promised is the transparency of his clothing. The emperor has no clothes.
Mm-hmm. You're exactly right, and I love that point, because I think what you just said there, we are a constitutional republic. I had Chuck Woolery, game show legend Chuck Woolery, on the program here about a month back, and that was one of the things he brought up, and he was talking about a recent survey that had been done on asking people, American citizens, what type of government are we? And it was amazing the percentage, the very, very small percentage of American citizens that actually knew we're a republic. We're not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic.
Well, and that's why every time I see liberals running up to a microphone and yelling, this is what democracy looks like.
Mm-hmm.
I want to take them, to the day after the next inauguration and tell them, this is what a republic looks like.
I want to take them behind the woodshed.
I'd probably help you do that.
Well, I'm going to hook you up when I get to that point. Hey, Craig, I really appreciate you coming on the program, and I want to urge everybody, go check out the National Patriot. Craig and his staff do a great job of really reporting the facts, and it's an excellent site. You can get the link on my webpage, but go check out the National Patriot. Craig, thanks for being on the Don Smith Show today. It was a pleasure. Don,
the pleasure was all mine. I hope to join you again someday.
You betcha. You sure will. Have a great weekend, my friend.
You too.
Bye-bye. Well, that was Craig Andresen from the National Patriot, and that is a great site. Go check that out. I reached out to Craig because it was just such a good website, and he does such a great job of writing the issues of today in a very nice way. So excellent to have him on the program.